hey, at least the store shelves are filled, and that is your future unless you start standing up for yourself. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Ukradowski here of wearechange.org, and boy, do we have a lot of crazy news to report for you today, as France, Italy, Germany are facing record high inflation numbers, as we are going to be hitting new labor and supply shortages that will surely rattle the future of this country, if not the world. We're going to get into that plus a lot more. But before we do, the clip that we played in the beginning of this broadcast is by Leonardo of Biz with his latest video called Cleaning Up Wagey. It looks like this person has a brand new YouTube channel, and they're doing pretty interesting, intriguing work. And that's why we linked their channel in the description below so you could watch more of their original content. Truly very breathtaking work, to say the least. And just jumping right into it, we wanted to remind you that Lieutenant Colonel Stewart Sheller is currently being held in this jail cell for committing the horrible crime of criticizing the president and his military command on Facebook. Yes, this is the video that has ended up a member of the U.S. military behind bars for simply criticizing this current administration and the absolute debacle that they pulled off in Afghanistan, with a series of horrible decisions that has ended the lives of numerous innocent people and armed the Taliban to the teeth. Was anyone held accountable, responsible for this huge dereliction of duty that led to so much suffering, so much problems, so much pain? Nope. The only person in that entire debacle that was punished was a member of the military who's being held in solitary confinement right now for criticizing it on Facebook. This is ridiculous, as is dangerous, since it signals the evisceration of political free speech in this country. Who else are the authorities going after in this country? Well, teen mothers like this one, who was just left brain dead after being shot in the back of the head by a school safety officer as she tried to drive away from a fight. Now, again, this event just unfolded. We're still waiting to find out all the latest details of exactly what happened here. This, as yet, we have another tumultuous interaction with police officers, which of course is going to be heavily criticized, and at least it should be properly investigated. Also, in other news, we have the current president of Russia announcing that he will put YouTube on notice and potentially make them disappear forever, as of course YouTube just announced new policies that would get people deleted from their platform if they didn't regurgitate what the quote medical experts at that particular time were saying. The same medical experts that changed their stance on issues very flippantly. It's very difficult to even understand the stances by the quote medical experts. But with this decision, two major Russian television channels were taken down from that platform, specifically two German-speaking YouTube channels that were deleted for, quote, misinformation surrounding the sickness. In response, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that he would potentially even ban YouTube from its entire country, and that looks like something that is very plausible here. Now, as YouTube allows the mainstream media to do whatever they want, without any repercussions, without any punishment, spreading disinformation, fake news blatantly as they have been, it's also important to make you understand that some swaps of the mainstream media institutions like Salon have been literally calling for people to be fired and punished for not taking a medical procedure that may or may not be right for them. The most amount of people that didn't take this medical procedure are predominantly blacks, as in New York, only 28% of young black New Yorkers have taken this procedure. And what Salon ultimately is calling for here is more salacious, discriminatory, racist policies that, in my opinion, are just as ridiculous as they are horrible. But this is the language, the context, and some of the ideas that have been openly promoted here on YouTube, which I find kind of disgusting. Other mainstream media narratives we saw run are headlines like, quote, "It's time to give up on facts." Forbes had an article that said, quote, "You must not do your own research when it comes to the science." The New York Times released an article saying to, quote, "not to go down the rabbit hole explaining how critical thinking is somehow bad, while another mainstream media outlet said, quote, questioning authority has become too much of a good thing and it's, quote, killing people. Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous, and that's why we strive on being the opposite of the mainstream media and giving you tools to be able to evaluate information, do some critical thinking, and make up your own mind after trying to hear out both sides of the story. Sadly, we don't have that on a lot of the media that people consume, but that's something that we strive. If you like that and want to support us, go to wearechange.org/donate. The link is down in the description below, and whether it's Venmo, Cash App, cryptocurrencies, your support, even through buying something through our affiliate sales, sending us physical mail, means the world to us. And truly, because you guys do that, we are still here. Also, we're going to have yet another video waiting for you today from LukeUncensored.com. Today, we're going to tell you what India and Japan have in common, especially with their policies that have been destroying the sickness going around. And we're also going to be telling you about the mysterious rise of heart attacks in Scotland. That plus a major recall in Ontario. Again, a lot of information that we will be getting into that sadly we can't get into on this platform. 50 cents a day, that's all it costs, and you get exclusive content delivered directly to you almost every single day. And this is where I have been putting most of my effort in and will be continuing to do so in the near future. Now, I think it's very fair to say with the current sentiment that a lot of people are not on board with the latest disastrous agendas and moves made by this current presidential administration. This is perfectly represented by many sports ball arenas chanting a phrase that begins with F and ends with U, along with the president's name at most major stadium gatherings when the public has an opportunity to actually come together. The president actually just attended a congressional ball game where he was even heard being overwhelmingly booed, as it's pretty clear that the support behind the president is not just lackluster, but not there at all, with many people just being absolutely distraught or angry at what the president, of course, is proposing. What is he proposing? A $3.5 trillion bill that his administration says is going to cost you nothing. How is he going to pay for this bill? Well, by taxing, fining, and regulating almost every aspect of your existence. The proposals that we have heard from the Democrats are literally charging you for every mile you drive, watching every transaction over $600 to make sure that every cent goes to the IRS, fining businesses $70,000 to $700,000 for not following their mandates, their decrees, their hoops that they want you to jump through out of nowhere, while, of course, creating massive inflation. Inflation, of course, being the biggest tax and the distribution of wealth that is happening in this country that many people aren't even aware of. So yeah, when you have Biden's equity efforts being financed this way, along with feeding the military-industrial complex, feeding the multinational corporate welfare that he is feeding through your tax dollars, yes, you're going to have people that are disillusioned, that are not happy, and are not going to want this to happen. And for this man to tell you it's just $3.5 trillion, it's not going to cost you anything, to have the mainstream media do the shilling and bidding for this, with even the New York Times write in an article saying that $1 trillion isn't as much as it sounds, is just absolutely ridiculous. During these negotiations, we're also finding out that Democrats are blocking Republican motions to stop the IRS from spying on people's bank accounts with transactions over $600, as they're also trying to push through a surveillance program that will be a major invasion of privacy that, of course, will be used politically in the future, just like the IRS was using its audit ability politically before. Now, as this bill gets debated and argued right now, we're going to be following it closely to see the disaster that this leads to, since, of course, as we know, many Republicans are absolutely spineless individuals and are as just much of corporate sellouts as, of course, the Democrats are. But even if it's not the government trying to create new disasters, it's still already creating some, as we're hearing rumblings of a, quote, global transportation system collapse, as there are still sickness-related restrictions and lockdowns on trade and movement that are stifling international shipping workers from being able to do their job. And that's why a coalition of unions recently came out and warned the world of a global transportation system collapse. Now, if this happens, this will have severe ramification for a lot of very important resources that are usually transported that won't be able to be sent from place A to B. This is going to be a major big deal for the United States that imports a lot of its products. It depends on China for microchips for some absolutely insane reason. Now you add the list of ships that are idling outside of U.S. ports with labor shortages, with a lack of truck drivers. And already we are seeing an unprecedented disruption and global delays on essential goods and products that have already been affecting people in the United States. A lot of this is done because of idiotic government policies, lockdowns, restrictions. Already people are seeing the effects of it at the supermarkets, and this is only going to get worse. As of course, the ingredients that are creating this problem are increasing, while of course there still isn't any solution with an overbearing government that is helping create these problems still not stopping and thinking the only way that they could solve this problem is with more regulations, more stealing of people's money, and then horribly redistributing it with its failed policies. If you ever want a perfect lesson of that, just head down to your local DMV to see what your government does with your money. As I said from the very beginning of last year, almost 2 years now, to look out for the larger economic ramifications, which will be far more significant than the health ramifications from all of this nonsense that the world is facing. And we're seeing some of this finally come to light as France just had its 10-year high inflation numbers this September. Germany, Italy, inflation rates have accelerated to record paces as well, as of course central bankers and big government bureaucrats are trying to hide the true numbers of inflation, which is ever so evident when going to the supermarket or just trying to live your life. Even major economists like Stephen Roach are warning that supply chain along with labor shortages has the United States on a collision course with 1970s style inflation, and there's a lot of absolutely scary parallels when you look at the 1970s and now. Inflation, even according to the official numbers, is skyrocketing up in the United States, and as we know, the official numbers are not as accurate as the real numbers, but mainly because of government. You could expect shortages even with your mail service, as USPS just announced deliveries are going to get slower and more expensive. There's major labor shortages in particular fields in the health industry, specifically with EMTs and nurses that are just being fired right now. In some places, they are calling this critical shortages, especially of EMTs, with over 1,000 openings for that particular position. There's even fears in Detroit that the power grid could go down, and this is just the beginning of a long series of problems to come. As we know, during winter, these problems will be exacerbated even more. China is dealing with its own problems, especially with real estate. The Chinese state is ordering their energy firms to, quote, secure supplies at all costs, and there's bigger problems ahead, not just for the United States, but for the world. Global economy, even in places like China, who are significantly supported by the corporatist globalist class. They're even facing their own series of major problems. Now, how exactly will these problems unfold? No one really knows about. The best thing I could just say is to prepare for the worst. That's the best advice I could ever give anyone, as of course more troubling signs are ahead. Prepare accordingly, and remember, one of the best assets, one of the best things of value that you could have during a national tragedy is, of course, your social currency with good relationships with the people around you the most. Family members, friends, neighbors. Build relationships, build communities, start talking to each other, start having cohesive relationships that focus on bartering, working together, and helping each other out. Places like New Hampshire and the Free State Project already have that down to a T. It's one of the reasons why I spend a lot of my time here. It's beautiful and amazing to see. It's one of the places with the most amount of homeschooled children. It has some of the highest IQ in the entire nation, and it's filled with individuals believing in their own personal freedom and personal responsibility. And if someone needs help here, we come together and we help each other out. Why? Because the people most responsible are able to do that. It's your duty to be as responsible as you can, and the time is now more than ever to do that. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. This is why I love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching, sharing these videos. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. Stay tuned for a lot more here on wearechange.org.